when the universe places something so scary in front of you that seems like you have to do it. I mean, that's kind of a blessing, right?
Totally. Welcome back to Entertainment Weekly's The Awardist. I'm David Canfield, EW's movies editor, and I'm joined now by Stephen Yeun, star of the film Minari. Hey, Stephen.
Hi.
Have you felt this sort of groundswell of support that just keeps building and building?
I guess it's hard to have a proper barometer on things, especially these days, because, we all have our own realities, right? Yeah. But I don't know. I do feel like there's a lot of support for it, which is really wonderful. And I'm eager for it to come out. Between Isaac, myself, and cast and crew, whenever we get to talk, I think the most resonant thing is the experience of the film continues to kind of cascade through our personal lives. So it's pretty cool.
David, look! They're wheels! Wheels? 여기 대체 어디야?
집이지. 우리 새로 시작한다고 그랬잖아. 이게 그거야. 아빠는 빅 가든 하나 만들 거야.
A movie that has, a lot of personal roots for your director, Lee Isaac Chung, and I know for you as well, it hit a lot of personal notes. How has that intersection been?
It's been great. It's been equally great and equally painful. Much like the world is going through a time of reflection and a time of maybe looking inward. I think this film also tasked us to do that, and I think to retread maybe severed connections of generations, especially as Korean immigrants. It's been pretty like healing, and also you have to uncover some things that perhaps you didn't really take a careful look at either. So this film really just kind of keeps speaking to the moment, and it's bizarre that way.
What first struck you about it? How did you find your way into the character of Jacob?
Well, this film came my way through just a script. I read the script, and Isaac had written something so personally to me, like painfully truthful, kind of a bare script, but so full at the same time. I felt like it was a reflection of a lot of our lives, and so it even extended beyond just the Korean immigrant experience. It just felt really resonant with a truth of humanity in that way. And so, for me as an actor, especially as a Korean American actor, I really am just looking to play a human role. And when you get that opportunity and you read a script that, has you kind of in it, and it gets to be full in America, you jump at those opportunities. And so for me, I was like, yeah, this is the thing I want to do. I was terrified. I was very terrified, because I think there were so many sensitive things I think this film was potentially going to touch. And for me specifically, I think it was going to touch upon language and understanding a prior generation, making sure that we didn't romanticize them or infantilize them in any way. That was what kind of drew me to it. And then in preparation for the role, it was gnarly. I thought it could be perhaps, no, I don't know if I didn't really have any thoughts. There was a point at which I asked Isaac, I was like, do you think we could rewrite the script and have me play the son, and it's half told in the future and half told in the past? And that was my way of kind of like wriggling out of having to play a Korean man of that era, a Korean American man of that era. And Isaac was really supportive, and he was like, I think you can do this. And I think the task itself was so terrifying that, you almost got to do it. You just, when the universe places something so scary in front of you that seems like, you have to do it. I mean, that's kind of a blessing, right? It's a blessing. Yeah.
I think especially when a result is this kind of movie that comes across so beautifully. Had you ever been intimidated by a role like that before? Or maybe that's not the right word, but challenged, I suppose.
I think in this case that is the right word. Before, I think perhaps before working in America, I was mostly asked to play visions and ideas and concepts of what maybe the way that I'm perceived in America. I was asked to play those archetypes. Full disclosure, and to be fair, I gladly welcomed playing those, because in some way I couldn't even see an alternate version, of myself in some ways, especially when I was young. And so, I never felt intimidated by other roles in the past. But this one, I think, was scary. It was scary for a lot of reasons. I think it was scary because it's a story that perhaps isn't necessarily like unseen or unheard of, but it hasn't really been told before in this context.
Obviously, one film does not change an industry, but given the reception to this movie, and particularly by American audiences of all stripes, how do you feel the response to a movie like this can impact Hollywood or change it or push it forward, especially, this coming on the heels of Parasite's Oscar win earlier in 2020 before we shut down?
Yeah. I mean, I can't be sure, but maybe my wish, or at least the moment that it services that I'm seeing is we spent a lot of time communicating to each other in the past about who we specifically are, maybe more on a surface level of how we might delineate who we are to each other from a cultural standpoint, from a visual standpoint, from, understanding the food we eat, the way we look, the customs that we're used to. And those are all so important because those are offshoots of our core identities and our culture and our humanity. But sometimes I feel the essentialized authenticity gets in the way of seeing how we are and who we are truly. Sometimes you're busy explaining to people what kimchi is instead of explaining to people like how you feel as a human being and why you make the choices that you make. With a story like this, that I feel like, we purposely try to not skip those things, but rather go so deeply into them that what you get at the end is a relatable story to anyone cross-culturally. We might be able to see each other a little clearer, a little bit more human, and be able to understand that, it looks a little different, but it pretty much kind of feels the same. It feels similar. I mean, we are human after all. And I know in some ways that's like a cliche. I mean, it's a cliche or it's corny, but it really is that. It really is like, if we are human, and all of us. And so I felt like, these times, hopefully this movie can bring people together. I think my wish is that it speaks upon the interconnectivity of all of us.
I don't like Grandma.
쟤는 안 그래요. 한국애니까.
Grandma smells like Korea.
야, 뭐라고? Grandma smell?
For a viewer like me, I watch a lot of movies in this job, but one of the pleasures of learning about this movie after I first saw it at Sundance was like, actually, this is a pretty stacked cast that maybe I wouldn't have even known that given, my familiarity. Like Yoon Jung, for example, who plays the grandmother in this film. It's such an amazing performance, is like pretty ubiquitous and popular in Korean film and television, right?
Yes, she's the greatest, one of the greats.
Assembling like that with this group, for you, what was that like? Because it is this, remarkable ensemble that for a lot of American audiences are being introduced to, at least as a group for a first time. Of course, there are going to be many Walking Dead fans walking in, but on a broader scale, it's a new kind of experience.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it speaks to the global nature of where we're all headed too. I mean, there's so many greats everywhere, and specifically in Korea, it's really wonderful that that we get to access someone like Yoon Jung or Han Yeri. Yoon has such a storied career and such an incredible story to her own personal life, and for me to be able to draft off her wisdom and just kind of her whole vibe, I feel so fortunate because I've been able to do that in Korea in a way that I don't know if many other Korean Americans have been able to access, and I feel very grateful. She reminds me, obviously not the same person, but she vibes with me in the way of like Lee Chang-dong, of just understanding that there's so much wisdom to be had from that time and that place.
So before this film, you made Burning, which is one of my favorites. So you make that, you make Minari. Where do you go next? Where did you find yourself after you finished these two projects, which are so singular and will really stand the test of time, I believe?
Oh, thanks. I don't know. I don't know. I hope I get more opportunities. I hope I continue to be able to push myself and work with wonderful collaborators. I think what I've found that I really enjoy, and I'm sure anybody would, is I really like connecting with other people that are trying to say something, no matter what that is. It can be big budget, crazy film or a small independent film. I'm really just trying to communicate, and I don't know what that means, really. I just kind of like take it each case by case. It's as simple as I just hope I get to continue to work. That would be nice.
I think that's a nice goal.
Yeah.
And is there anything that sticks out to you as like, man, I have to get on that. I haven't done that yet.
I will say, like, every time I try to force things or like I pick a thing like that, it sometimes doesn't pan out, or I contort it in my own brain, and it becomes something that I didn't want it to be. But it'd be so fun to play with something big. It'd be really, really wonderful to play with something very big, to give in to a giant adventure story, or I kind of want to do all of it. I want to try my hand at all of it and see what happens.
Before we wrap, I've been asking a few people on this, so a sort of meta question about this kind of experience. Obviously, we're doing these virtually. The Oscar campaign trail is very, very different than it has been in the past. How have you found it? How have you found talking about this movie and this role and this moment for you from, I presume, your home?
Yeah.
And having that and going on that journey, it's such a strange time.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think it really is appropriate to the moment. I mean, I could chart the course of how Kismet and unexplainable the whole journey of this film has been on the whole, even when we were making it. Just incredible things would happen. But, on the road to this, I don't know, it feels like everyone's I guess I don't want to give much away, but everyone is hopefully starting to see each other. At least that's what's happening in my personal life. I think it's understanding how deeply connected we all are, and how much I am everything because of everybody. The people in my life are so interwoven into my reality, into my existence, into who I am, that it feels, as much as we're disconnected and distant from each other, I also simultaneously do appreciate and understand the connections for what they are. And perhaps it needed to be taken away in order for me to really understand, like, how much I miss them, and how much I appreciate how deeply important people are in my life. Not just personally, but just even on a wider lens of just like being able to like run into a stranger. Just to be able to like graze past someone I have no idea about is something that I miss and cherish now. And so it feels appropriate.
think so too. Well, the film is Minari. Stephen Yeun, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
Thanks to you all for listening. This has been Entertainment Weekly's The Awardist. I'm David Canfield. Thanks.